Sorry, as we remain upstanding, I'm requesting to invite Ambassador Mahati to lead us in Muslim prayer. Thank you.
I think you allow the guests to sit because for Muslim prayers, we don't need to stand. I think it's most comfortable to sit. I'll be reciting some verses of the Holy Quran in Arabic. And the Holy Quran is full of prayers, so you will listen. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم تر أن الله أنزل من السماء ماء فأخرجنا به ثمرات مختلفا ألوانها وغرابيب سود فأخرجنا به مختلفا ألوانها ومن الجبال جدد بيض وحمر مختلف ألوانه وغرابيب سود ومن الناس والدواب والأنعام مختلف ألوانه كذلك إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء إن الله عزيز غفور إن الذين يتلون كتاب الله وأقاموا الصلاة وأنفقوا مما رزقناهم سرا وعلانية يرجون تجارة لن تبور ليوفيهم أجورهم ويزيدهم من فضله إنه غفور شكور. السلام عليكم.
Thank you. At this point in time, our chief guest, allow me to invite the Director, Technical Services, Mr. Peter Nyakwara, to invite the Director General to make a few remarks and welcome all our chief guests. Thank you.
Our chief guest, Honorable Ambassador Yakuru Yatan, Chief Secretary, the National Treasury and Planning, Honorable Professor Margaret Kamal, Kopia, CS, Public Service and Gender, all CSS present, UNDP Resident Coordinator, guests, good morning. It's my humble duty to welcome our Director General, Dr. Mohamed Sheikh, to recognize and make welcome remarks on behalf of the National Council for Population Development. Dr. Kadip.
Our chief guest, Honorable Ambassador Okuryatani, the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Planning, our Cabinet Secretary for Public Service and Gender, Professor Kobia, our Chief Administrative Secretary to invite from the various ministries, our PS, Saitoti Torome, our staffs from the National Council of Population, Sidahat from the UN representative, Demola from from the UNFPA, our partner, the media, all present, good morning. Really, it's a great pleasure to host you this morning, our chief guest and our CS for Gender. The National Council for Population and Development, as you are aware, is a state department, is under the State Department of Planning, is a council that is mandated to manage and oversee the implementation of issues to do with population and development. This morning here, in the World Population Day 11, which is on Saturday. In this COVID-19, we thought it's important that we celebrate this day as much as we have a challenge. And this day, we are going to launch some few documents. One is the status of the World Population Day, status of the world population, the state of the world population, and the state of the Kenyan population report. Those are the two documents we are going to launch. With me here is the staff from NCPD and our partners, and also my board members. But that one I'll hand over to my peers who will take over the event to recognize the guests who are present and also our board members. With those few remarks, I just want to welcome you to this occasion on behalf of NCPD and to thank you for acknowledging our invitation. Thank you very much, and may God bless you. Peers, sir, welcome.
Ambassador Ukur Yatani, CS Public Service and Gender, Professor Margaret Kobia, CS National Treasury and Planning, Honorable Nelson Gaishohie, CS Ministry of Labor, Honorable Patrick Ndutu, CAS Ministry of Health, Dr. Rashid Amani, CAS Nadia Abdallah, ICT, UN Resident Coordinator Sid Chadate, board members of National Population, National Council for Population and Development, the staff of National Council for Population and Development, and all invited guests. Good morning. It actually gives me pleasure to welcome you this year to the World Population Day being observed across the globe. The purpose of this day is to create awareness of the population issues, share experiences, and advocate new strategies aimed at tackling them. And just as you are aware, the population of every country actually faces a lot of challenges. And this is not new. It was predicted by Reverend Thomas Malthus in 18th century. And these problems are even ongoing. Like currently we are talking about the COVID-19, which has actually affected every country in the world. And as a result, every country has tried to come up with policies and strategies on how to manage this pandemic. For example, in Kenya, we have actually started the economic stimulus package being implemented this financial year, which will address the key sectors most affected by the COVID-19. The economic and sectoral intervention will include population variable that will respond to the need of the people. It is worth to note that during the 2019, the Kenya population and housing census showed us that our population policy is achieving its target at the intercessor growth rate at 2.2%. The population is dominated by young people, with those below 15 years making up to 39%. And the population compared to 34% compared to 2009, where the proportion of those below 15 was actually 43%. So you can see how the population structure has actually changed. And furthermore, the Kenya population policy for national development is being reviewed to include emerging population issues and also to integrate the role of counties in population management. Because we know that in Nairobi, the population is only 4 million. The other 43 million are actually in the counties. And that is why it is very important to integrate the role of the counties in the population management. And as I conclude, I would like to wish you all the key stakeholders fruitful discussion as we mark this day. But before I sit down, before I sit down, I take this opportunity to invite Mrs. Rahab Muyu to speak on behalf of the board chair of the NCPD.
Asante. Good morning, all. Our Minister for National Government, Mr. Yatani, our Minister for Public Service, Professor Margaret Kopia, Country UN, Mr. Chatterjee, Mr. Andemola, CAS Health, at least we will know you even if you have the mask. You've done a great job. All CAS who are here, all dignitaries na sisi zote, amjambo. Yangu ni kusema njambo kwa niaba ya board members. I would ask the board members to stand of NCPD. Tafadhali, simameni. Those are our board members. I am from Maendeleo Wanawake, but I'm represented by a technical person, the program manager. We are here and delighted for this day. This is not our day. It's just to say, Bwana Yatani, we are grateful for the support we get. The UN, UNFPA, we are grateful for the partnership. Mr. Chatterjee, we are grateful for what you are doing with us. And we ask you to continue partnering with us, Minister of Health. I will not miss to talk about the girl and say that we hope, and the minister said when we were in Meru the other day, that we'll get a structured way of dealing with the issue we have. What we have there is 20 to 49 years for marriage, but now we have 10 years mother, which the country cannot afford to have. And because our CS has spoken to that, indeed His Excellency the President on gender-based violence, we look forward, PS, for planning for a structured way to sort out this issue. With those few remarks on behalf of the board, we thank you. Our new Director General, Karibu Sana, you are quite new, and the staff, we like the way you work with us. You keep your distance and we manage you from far. Asanteni sana DJ, we wish you all the best. May God bless us all, asanteni.
Thank you very much, Madam Rahab Muya, for those remarks on behalf of the board chair. And without much ado, I now take this opportunity to invite Dr. Ademola Olideja, UNFPA country representative, to make some remarks. Daktari, karibu.
Thank you, PS. Honorable Kuriatan, the Cabinet Secretary, Treasurer and National Planning, the Chief Guest. CS Margaret Kobia, Cabinet Secretary, the Ministry of Public Service and Gender. Mr. Sidharth Chatterjee, the Resident Coordinator of the United Nations System in Kenya. Chief Administrative Secretaries, DGNCPD. I see the CEO and TFGM Board, and the Chairman Deleo. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. In November 2019, the Republic of Kenya, in partnership with the United Nations Population Fund and the Kingdom of Denmark, co-hosted here in Nairobi the Icpd25 Summit. You played host to about 10,000 delegates from 173 countries who examined the progress we have made since the commitment of the International Conference on Population and Development Program of Action that was drawn up in Cairo in 1994. We looked at the progress, and all of those delegates made 1,250 commitments. His Excellency, President of Kenya, led this great nation in making 17 commitments that ranged on leveraging innovation and technology to optimizing the capacity of young people, to protecting the rights of women and girls, and safeguarding reproductive and maternal health. These commitments were commitments that immediately we had hit the ground working with the National Council on Population and Development to begin to achieve. this year's World Population Day is being marked against the background of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has significantly hindered our capacity to deliver on those commitments. It has slowed the progress that we have made and now continues to threaten to undo some of the hard-work gains of the years gone by. It has deepened inequalities. It has accentuated vulnerabilities. We have noted reductions in access to quality health services, increase in GBV, and vulnerabilities to FGM. Yes, the COVID-19 pandemic indeed is a global challenge, but within it lies a unique opportunity. The theme of this year's World Population Day calls us that as we put the brakes on COVID-19, we must safeguard the rights and the health of women and girls. The State of the World Population Report 2020 also reminds us that as a society, we can come together to demystify those harmful practices that undermine the rights of women and girls. As we open up the economy, we must begin to rebuild a system that provides an opportunity for every individual, irrespective of gender or social status, to achieve full potential. We must build a system that does not tolerate harmful practices like FGM and child marriage. His Excellency the President has set for us an ambitious target of ending FGM by 2022, and I dare say it is achievable. People have asked me, is it possible to end a practice that is so ingrained in culture in 2 years? And my answer is simple. As a society, in 3 weeks of the COVID pandemic, we have stopped shaking hands. If politicians can stop shaking hands in 2 weeks, we can end FGM in 2 years. Cabinet Secretaries, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we reopen the economy, we must make a deliberate effort to build a system that works for everybody. As we put the brakes on the COVID-19 pandemic and engage the accelerator towards our national development objectives, we must make deliberate efforts to reach the furthest behind first. We must make a conscious effort to recalibrate our programs, our plans, that no longer should we leave anybody behind, we must not push anybody behind. At this point, that is the Kenya that would work for every segment of the society, and that is the vision that the United Nations Population Fund closely aligns with. Because for us at the UNFPA, everybody counts. And so sincerely, I'd like to thank the Cabinet Secretary, National Planning and Treasury for the leadership that he had provided throughout the process of planning for Icpd25 and even post-ICPD. I dare say that COVID-19 surprised us, but it did not catch us napping. We were not sleeping. We were working with the NCPD to push forward the commitments, and will continue to work. I'd like to thank the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Public Service and Gender. I have just returned from being part of her delegation to Tarakaniti and to Meru, and will continue to go on the field where the rubber meets the road. We thank the leadership that the Ministry of Health has provided, which has enabled us to miss the bullets sincerely on this pandemic. And we hope that government as a collective will work with all partners, including the UN represented by the Registrant Coordinator here, to ensure we rebuild a system that works for every Kenyan, including women and girls. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the UNFPA country representative, for your quite insightful remarks. And we thank you for the support that you have all actually been giving the NCPD as it carry out its mandate. We are quite grateful, and also your support for the Icpd25. You really gave us a lot of support, and that's why it was a very big success. Now, chief guest, I now take this opportunity to invite Sid Chataje, the UN resident coordinator, to make his remarks. Karibu, Sid.
Excellency, CS Treasury Ukuriatani, Excellency CS Margaret Kobia, PS is present, CAS is present, my brother, the head of the NCPD, good to meet you. Demola, the UNFPA representative, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning. It is an eventful day today. It is eventful on many counts. I'm actually in the presence of two people that I greatly admire, and I have to give you a very short anecdote to this. C.S. Yatani used to be the governor of Marsabit County when I used to be in Demola's shoes as the UNFPA representative in this country. And we launched a program in 6 counties, Marsabit, Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Lamu, and Isiolo, to reduce the maternal mortality ratios in these 6 counties. These 6 counties contributed to 50% of the deaths. The charge that C.S. Yatani led over there was quite dramatic. In fact, I'm not sure if you're aware, but 2015 was the first time that Marsabit County had the first C-section operation. So you can imagine how left out of the national development many of the frontier counties were. Where the delivery of a child, a premature delivery of a child, was a death sentence for the child. In that county, suddenly, with the presence of incubators, they were able to start actually preserving life. I also witnessed the signing of the cross-border agreement in Moyale between Kenya and Ethiopia, where the two heads of state, President Kenyatta and that time Prime Minister Haile Mariam, came together. And in CS Margaret Kobia, we have someone who's a true champion of gender. She will not hide away from pulling the punches. She has warned Kenya. We have seen a spike of 45% in cases of sexual and gender-based violence. That is not who we are as a society, not in this country. That is not who we represent in terms of our cultural norms and heritage. And this is something that we have to fight with resilience. And that is why when I saw the ICPD conference happen here in November 2019, ladies and gentlemen, please understand, it didn't happen just because it was Kenya. There were many countries in the world that wanted to have this conference hosted there. Because the previous conference 25 years ago was in Egypt. Kenya was chosen for a reason. Kenya was seen as a flag bearer in the advancement of gender issues. I think the First Lady of Kenya, Margaret Kenyatta, really put this country on the global map in the charge with the Beyond Zero initiative. It got noticed everywhere. And there was resilience, there was purpose, there was commitment. I saw the launch of the Beyond Zero campaign in Mandera County. That time, our former UNFPA Executive Director, the dear departed Dr. Babatunde Osataiman was there. Counties which were at one time even not considered safe enough to go to have started seeing transformation thanks to the Beyond Zero. Because what Kenya has shown is political will, and it's that political will that got noticed. So what happened in 2019 will happen 25 years later. What we want to see is Kenya becoming that role model of a country for the rest of the world. And it truly can be. It is. Look at the technology, look at the innovation, look at the big data, which is happening, really, which is taking shape in this country. Can we look at new public-private partnerships to achieve that kind of scale and momentum? Absolutely possible. Because Kenya is blessed with 3 things. Number 1, strong political will. I was actually witness to a meeting in March last year when President Kenyatta was sitting with the executive director of UNFPA, Natalia Kanem, and said, help us eradicate FGM. I want this to be a legacy. It's a very strong political commitment to make. And that is why I'm really pleased to see how UNFPA, UNICEF, the government, spearheaded by CS Margaret Kobia and the anti-FGM board, is really moving this agenda ruthlessly. Because if we can eradicate FGM, we will end the scourge of child marriage. We will start allowing girls to achieve their full human potential. And then the primacy of those 3 zeros of 0 preventable maternal deaths, 0 unmet needs of family planning, 0 gender-based violence will start taking shape. And then we will see household prosperity. Women will be able to plan their families, contribute to the family income. There'll be more disposable income, better nutrition, better education, better access to opportunities for the children there. Again, to me, Kenya is that role model. So it has got strong political will. It's got great public policies. It's about ensuring. It had criminalized FGM long time ago. It is how do we ensure those public policies are properly implemented. And this is where the UN, the entire UN family of 23 UN funds and programs will work with you on this. But the third is partnerships. The kind of public-private partnerships we are seeing in this country, other countries are trying to emulate it. With CS Amina Mohammed, that time she was the foreign minister of this country, we launched the first SDG public-private partnership platform during the UN General Assembly in 2017. I don't know how many of you are aware, but Kenya was invited to the World Economic Forum for the dramatic drop it showed in terms of maternal mortality ratio. When I came here in 2014, it was 488 deaths per 100,000 live births. By 2017, it was down to about 360 deaths per 100,000 live births. Now, in many countries, these would take about 10 to 15 years to achieve. So it is a country of great promise. It is about how do we now make sure that this drive, that the direction and momentum that the Icpd conference has given us, with the energy and enthusiasm of the head of state of a country who has gone to the micro level of advancing this, what will shape the new horizon in this COVID environment. Because remember, the COVID is a global challenge of global proportions. It is challenging science, it is challenging medicine, it is challenging everything. But it should not challenge our humanity. It should not challenge our compassion. So I will now want to just acknowledge the importance of the World Population Day. We will be 10 billion people on this planet by 2050. Every day, there are 3,000 Kenyans born, every day. From the time you woke up this morning, by the time you go to bed. Every year, there is about 1.2 million Kenyans, being born. Every year, about 1 million Kenyans are joining the workforce. Every year, we are barely creating about 150 to 200,000 jobs. What is going to be the next employment opportunity for those young Kenyans to look into that future? The issue is that by 2030, Kenya's population will be 65 million. That's a given. By 2050, at the current rate of a total fertility rate of 4.1, Kenya's population will be at about 100 million. The population of the sub-region of Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Tanzania would be about 600 million. With the youngest population profile, that by 2050 it will be 2.3 billion in Africa, of which 850 million will be young people. This is where the future of consumption and production is going to happen. Can we get ahead to make sure that Kenya becomes that role model for the rest of the region, for the Horn, in advancing that economic trajectory, because the rest of the world is aging. The West is aging. Kenya's median age is 18. Sweden's median age is 47. So it's a tremendous opportunity for us on how to reap a demographic dividend, and that demographic dividend will only be reaped when we start looking at the entire issue of sexual reproductive health and rights. So finally, it comes down to that girl child and the woman at the center of it. So I want to end by an appeal that I always make to all political parties, all political leaders across the country. Let's make Kenya the role model of passing the 2/3 gender bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sid, for your insightful remarks, and especially by telling us that by the year 2030, and 2030 is 10 years to come. Kenya's population will be about 65 million. That is the time we shall have ended up the Vision 2030. At that time, maybe we shall start now talking about Vision 2063. Thank you very much. And you are actually a true friend of Kenya, because Sid is always very positive about our country. And he always encourages us to go ahead and become a leader in the area. Thank you very much for your insightful remarks. I now take this opportunity to invite the CAS, National Treasury and Planning, Honorable Nelson Gaishu here, to take the rest of the program, or to coordinate the rest of the program. Mheshimiwa, karibu.
Thank you very much, PS Saitoti Torome, PS Planning. Our chief guest, Ambassador Kuriatan, the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Planning, Cabinet Secretary, Public Works and Gender, Professor Kobia, all protocols observed. It's with great pleasure that I want to welcome everybody here for this World Population Day, which is our first one ever since COVID-19 came into being, and also the first one ever since we had our population census 2019. This is just to assure you that when we plan, we'll be planning with information, because we conducted a very successful census. Although we're having the COVID-19, we still thought as a ministry we need to celebrate this World Day, because population is a very, very important issue, and all the speakers here really talked about the girl child. And of course, we know we need to take care of our girl child and women. Though we're having COVID-19, we've seen in some areas gender violence and also FGM coming back. As a National Treasury and Planning, we want to assure you all that we'll make sure that nobody will take advantage of COVID-19 to go back to those old ways. We are going to ensure that, as the President promised, FGM will be a thing of the past by 2020. And with those very few remarks, it is now my pleasure to invite Patrick Olentutu, CAS, Ministry of Labor, to make his brief remarks. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Rashid of Health, I think you can see we are trying to do what you have always told us to do. Our chief guest, Ambassador Ukur Yatani, Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury and Planning, Professor Margaret Kobia, CS, Ministry of Public Service and Gender, my colleagues, CSs who are present here, Nesol Gachie of Treasury, Mrs. Nadia Ahmed Abdallah, CS ICT, Youth and Innovation, Mrs. Maureen Mbaka, CS ICT, Youth and Innovation, Dr. Rashid Aman, CS Ministry of Health, ladies and gentlemen, good morning all. I am delighted to join you all as we mark this year's World Population Days, whose theme is putting the brake on COVID-19, how to safeguard the health and the rights of women and girls, and the launch of the 2020 World Population Report, whose theme is Against My Will, defying the practices that harm women and girls and undermine equality. Kenya plays its rightful place in the League of Nations and is never left behind when it comes to respecting the rights of children and women. Kenya ratified the United Nations Convention on the Right of the Child on the 30th July 1990, and the convention contains a comprehensive set of international standards for the protection and well-being of children, which can be summed up in four major pillars, namely survival, development, protection, and participation rights. Our country has been adhering to the provisions through formulation and implementation of policies, legislation, and programs that enhance child rights welfare, such as the 2010 Constitution of Kenya, Article 53, which recognizes the right of all children to be protected from abuse and neglect, harmful cultural practices, all forms of violence, inhumane treatment and punishment, and hazardous or exploitative labor. Ladies and gentlemen, since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an upsurge of teenager pregnancy being reported in the country. Cognizance of this fact, the ministry has developed a child protection information management system, which we refer as CPMIMs, that documents all reported cases and is working in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and other agencies to scrutinize data reported in the media. We have also facilitated officers in the Department of Children's Services to monitor and respond to cases of child abuse during this period of COVID-19 pandemic. The ministry is liaising with the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, National Police Service, and National Administration Officers, the Judiciary, and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, ODPP, to investigate, apprehend, and prosecute the men who sexually abuse our children. To protect children and ensure justice is served, the ministry has been liaising with the Court Users Committee and Judiciary to hold a virtual court session for children. Similarly, the ministry, through its field officers, has provided psychological support services to children who may have needed such services, and is encouraging the pregnant teenagers to go back to school to continue with their education after delivering their babies. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection has developed and adopted policies and enacted laws to protect children. In the year 2019, the ministry undertook survey on violence against children, whose aim was to understand the magnitude of the problem. From the finding of this survey, the Violence Against Children Prevention and Response Plan 2019-2023 has been developed to provide strategy to address incidents of violence against children. This action will be launched in the coming week. The ministry, through the National Council of Children's Services and the Department of Children's Service, has also developed guidelines on child protection during emergencies. Ladies and gentlemen, the government and partners such as UNICEF, Plan International USAID, among others, are working on raising girls' awareness of their sexual and reproductive health and the right to protecting them from abuse and connecting them with education and health services. Similarly, the cash transfer in Inua Jamii support, especially to the vulnerable children, has brought impact on delaying age of sexual debut, reduces high risk, and hence save transition to adulthood and delayed pregnancies and marriages. Beside the support given to orphans and vulnerable children, the Inua Jamii Cash Transfer Program, which is now increasingly recognized, is as an important component of poverty reduction and development in low and middle income countries, as continued being implemented by the ministry. The 4 cash transfer programs implemented by the ministry are aimed at reducing poverty and vulnerability at the household level, thus improving people's livelihood. To date, the ministry is giving cash transfer to about 1,094,045 needy persons in the country. And up to date, older persons, we are giving about 644 older persons. And orphans and vulnerable children is 295,307. And person severe with severe disability is 34,094. That totals to 1,094,000. Ladies and gentlemen, last week, my ministry launched a report on informal sector skills and occupation that revealed that there are 5 million informal sectors business employing 11.9 workers. Majority of these employees are 57.3% are women. The report also revealed that overall females were more in occupations such as managers managing their own small businesses, which stand at 63.8%. Service workers, shop and market sales workers, 62.6%. And elementary occupations, 63.5%. These are, however, the occupation most affected by the measures that the government put to contain the spread of COVID-19. Realizing the effect of COVID-19, that COVID-19 was having on labor and employment, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection initiated a number of measures to mitigate against the effect of job losses. Such as initiatives include the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the ministry and social partners that advocate for social dialogue during the period of COVID-19 pandemic to forestall labor unrest. Similarly, the ministry has coordinated with the National COVID Fund and other development partners to offer support to new groups of vulnerable Kenyans who have lost their livelihood because of COVID-19 pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection is committed to doing whatever is practicable possible to protect the rights of women and girls, to ensure equal opportunity in employment, and to advocate for abolition of cultural practices that discriminate against them. We call upon all employers to be cautious of this fact when employing and to take affirmative action where such is required. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Patrick Ntutu, for highlighting what your ministry is actually doing for the Kenyans. So I want to take this opportunity to invite Nandia Abdallah, CAS ICT, Youth and Innovations, to come and make her remarks. Thank you.
Chief Guest CS Ambassador Ukur Yatani, CS Professor Margaret Kobia, fellow CASES, PSS, distinguished guests, UNFPA Dr. Ademola Oladeji, UN Resident Coordinator Mr. Siddharth, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. CAS Ministry of Health, please allow me to take down my mask. This is because I would like everyone to take a look at me. And that is because today's theme, putting the brakes on COVID-19, on how to safeguard the health and rights of women and girls now, is very important. I'd like to thank His Excellency the President for giving me a chance, a youth who is below the age of 30, to occupy the CAS seat in the history of Kenya. So this shows you how important it is for us to safeguard the young girls and the young women, because I am a young woman and I was once a young girl. And if I wasn't protected and if I wasn't nurtured, then I wouldn't be standing here right now in front of you all. So for that, I'd like to thank you all. The Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs priority is to ensure the safety of our youth during this period. The ministry's mandate entails empowerment of youth, including young women and girls. We have developed and are involved in targeted action to empower young women and girls and necessary in addressing inequalities and realize their full capacities and skills. And in order for them to attain a level of control over their own environment and livelihood, it is very important to fulfill the government's protection mandate on the youth. Some of the initiatives include the National Hygiene Initiative, rollout of the Kenya Is Me Youth Dialogue, which is a dialogue that emphasizes on mental health, safe sexual reproductive health, and participation of young women and young girls in Kenya. Rollout of the Kenya Youth Development Policy, the Task Force and National Plan of Action on Adolescents' Health, and the release of mental health and well-being towards happiness and national prosperity. As we commemorate World Population Day today, we need to call attention to the vulnerabilities and the need of the women and girls during the COVID-19 crisis, and why protecting them is imperative, especially in these challenging times. The pandemic is hitting already marginalized communities, and it is distinctive impact on the women and girls in our Republic of Kenya. And it possesses risks that society is threatened to step a step back as we keep growing. This underscores an urgent need to safeguard these gains by addressing the disappropriate negative impact of COVID-19 on the health and well-being of women and girls. We must act now to maintain our commitment to the rights and lives of women and girls and act fast to avoid the increase of gender-based violence during this crisis. Therefore, now more than ever, we must ensure that their fundamental rights and access to justice are respected and guaranteed. We need to take necessary measures to protect the rights of women and girls who are often affected in this crisis situation. We have an obligation, each and every one of us, to guarantee the right to live free from discrimination, from violence, and call on all government and other partners to ensure access to essential sexual and reproductive health services, commodities, and information during this pandemic. As a global community comes together in solidarity to survive this pandemic, we need to lay the foundation for a more resilient, gender-equal society and a healthier and more prosperous future for all in this country. As a youth and a youth leader and a representative of so many young women and girls in Kenya, collectively and coordinated, we have to mitigate and recover interventions which will succeed in helping the young people, especially the young women and children's voices, including those and their fundamental rights to be respected. If we are to make progress beyond the pandemic in this decade of action towards the 2030 SDGs finish line, we must put women and girls at the very center and develop a strategic policy. Recognize that women and girls are ultimately at the heart of our nation and continent's remarkable transformation journey of growth and change. As our ministry, in collaboration with partners, plan to mark the International Youth Day on the 12th of August next month, we are reminded by this year's theme of Youth Engagement for Global Action, to ensure that youth are not left out or behind or disengaged in the development plans of this Republic of Kenya. This year's theme seeks to highlight the ways in which the engagement of young people at the local and national and global levels. This is according to the Department of Economic and Social Affairs Youth of the United Nations. As I conclude, allow me to take the earliest opportunity to invite you all, our partners, government bodies, and everyone else to celebrate with us this day, which will kick off from the 6th of August with a week-long of activities which will focus on all issues impacting on their socio-economic empowerment, including mental health and mentorship, which is a personal interest of mine. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all. Sorry, I'd like to send CS Joe Musheru his warm regards to you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is proof that the President is really committed to support the youth and the culture. I want to take this opportunity to invite Maureen Baker to make a few remarks. Maureen Baka is also a CAS, ICT Youth and Innovation. Karibu.
Thank you. As introduced, my name is Maureen Baka. I'm also a Chief Administrative Secretary at the Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs. As Nadia, my colleague, has stated, Honorable CS Nadia, I too am below the age of 35, so our ministry is a very youthful ministry. Honorable Cabinet Secretaries, Chief Administrative Secretaries present, Principal Secretaries, NCPD leadership present, partners, UN, UNFPA, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a pleasure joining you all this morning to commemorate the World Population Day, a day to enhance awareness on the issues that face the population, with this year's theme being putting the brakes on COVID-19, how to safeguard the health and rights of women and girls now, not tomorrow, but now. Thus shedding light on the issues faced by women and girls, issues that are actually exacerbated during this time of the pandemic, such as early marriage, FGM, GBV, and how to tackle these issues. Also shedding light on these issues are the reports, the State of the World report to be launched today, as well as State of Kenya Population report. In our country, teen pregnancy is one of the challenges that we are facing, and it is linked to matters such as harmful cultural practices, alcohol and drug abuse, and limited access to sexual and reproductive health information. In line with the themes today, and in light of the current pandemic, the role of ICTs in tackling this challenge comes in by way of creating awareness and sensitization on the issues surrounding teen pregnancy. This information may be disseminated by use of traditional media, social media, the internet, and also packaging these health promotion messages to not only the youth and the adolescent, but to parents and caregivers who play a critical role in curbing teen pregnancies. ICT can further be utilized to engage the youth at this time through digital and digitally empowered engagements that will see the youth employed and empowered. Towards this end, the government, through the Ministry of ICT, is working towards ensuring universal connectivity in the country. The government has invested and continues to ramp up the national optic fiber backbone infrastructure and is facilitating competitively priced and affordable last-minute connectivity to ensure connectivity to all parts of the country. Further, and as demonstrated this week by the Honorable CS Musheru, who was testing this service in Baringo County, the government, in collaboration with Telkom Kenya, is launching the Loon project that is expected to further extend 4G coverage to unserved and underserved parts of the country. On engaging the youth, the ministry has established the Ajira digital program, which seeks to have young people earning from digital and digitally enabled job opportunities. The program may be accessed at constituency level, where devices and internet connectivity is provided at constituency innovation hubs. So far, over 100 of these have been set up around the country. The program also provides digital skills training to young people to enable them to leverage on digital opportunities and to build their careers and create employment. With the use of ICTs, there also comes the issue of cybersecurity and concerns on safety online. And to safeguard the online space, the government has enacted various legislation, including the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, to enable timely and effective detection, prevention, and response to cybercrimes. Another critical development in this area is also setting up of the National Computer Incident Response Team Coordination Center. This is managed by the regulator, the Communication Authority. In conclusion, ICT may be used to educate and to engage the adolescent, youth, parents, and caregivers to raise awareness on these issues and on how to tackle them. ICT can be adopted to drive the sensitization around the issues and the risks that arise from teen pregnancy. This is to enable the safeguard of the young women and girls of this country. On behalf of the Honorable CS, Joe Musheru, I wish you all a happy World Population Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maureen. And may I now take this opportunity to invite Dr. Rashid Aman, CAS Ministry of Health. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Let me begin by commending the organizers of this function and ourselves as partners in observing the measures that we repeatedly remind Kenyans about. I'm impressed the way we're doing things here in terms of observing those measures. The chief guest, Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Planning, Ambassador Ukur Yatani, the Cabinet Secretary of Public Services and Gender, Professor Margaret Kobia, my colleagues, Chief Administrative Secretaries present, the PS for Planning, Mr. Saitoti Torome, Director General NCPD, Mohammed Sheikh, UN Resident Coordinator, Sid Chatterjee, and Country Rep, UNFPA, Dr. Ademola Olajide. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's an honor and indeed a pleasure to join you today during this 2020 World Population Day celebrations. On my behalf and on behalf of the Ministry of Health, we are marking this day even as the world continues to grapple with the challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic. Amidst this pandemic, this year's World Population Day theme focuses on safeguarding the right of women and girls in the face of challenges presented by the pandemic. The pandemic has exacerbated problems such as teenage pregnancies, gender-based violence, and other harmful practices faced by women and girls that will undoubtedly lead to poor maternal and child health outcomes. Teenage pregnancies, often driven by poverty, present serious health, social, economic, and educational challenges that deny already marginalized communities access to educational and employment opportunities. 26% of adolescents from poor backgrounds are more likely to get pregnant compared to 10% from wealthier households, according to the 2014 Kenya Demographic Health Survey. 33% of girls with no education are more likely to become pregnant as compared to 12% with secondary education. In some communities, adolescent girls are expected to marry and bear children early, further complicating the problem. Sexual and gender-based violence is another cause of adolescents' pregnancy. About a third of girls in some countries report that their first sexual encounter was coerced. Teenage pregnancies often present with medical complications. Adolescent mothers face higher risks of eclampsia, systemic infections, and puerperal endometritis than older women. Babies born to adolescent mothers face additional risks of low birth weight, preterm delivery, and severe neonatal conditions, as well as physical and cognitive challenges. Unsafe abortions further contribute to maternal morbidity and mortality in this age group. It has been reported that 17% of women seeking post-abortion care services are adolescents. Despite return-to-school policies to keep adolescent girls in school, school dropout rates due to adolescent pregnancies often remain high, jeopardizing future educational and employment opportunities for these girls. The Kenya Health Information System is a reliable database that captures data, among others, on adolescent pregnancies presenting in health facilities. In the period January to May 2020, Nairobi County is leading with 11,795 teenage pregnancies. This is slightly higher than last year's figures of 11,410 cases reported in the same period. Kakamega County is a close second with 6,686 cases compared to 8,109 cases last year. Machakos County, which has been the focus of the latest public outcry on teenage pregnancies, actually ranks number 14 with 3,966 cases registered compared to 4,710 cases for the same period last year. These numbers that I have given out here illustrate the need to be able to provide accurate data. What we saw in the media is not accurate data. When we go back to our databases, you can see that yes, the pandemic has disrupted many, many activities, has resulted in has created a lot of adversity in many areas. But when you look at the teenage pregnancies, our data show that while there may be some slight increases in the first quarter of this year compared to the past same quarter last year, it's not as alarming as the cases that were reported in the media. If we look at the total national numbers of teenage pregnancies reported for this period, that is January to May 2020, we are at 151,433, actually lower than what we saw during the same period last year at 175,488. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, addressing the complex issues contributing to increasing numbers of teenage pregnancies in the country requires a multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder approach that includes different line ministries, non-governmental organizations, civil society, and faith-based organizations. We need to engage communities, teachers, parents, and adolescents themselves as agents of change to end teenage pregnancy in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rashid Aman, and thank you for that clarification. Yes, we have a lot to do to curb that teenage pregnancy. I don't know if we have a representative of the Council of Governors. We had invited the chair, but since he's not here, let me take this early opportunity to invite the CS Ministry of Public Service and Gender, Professor Margaret Kobia, to make her remarks. Karibu sana waziri.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Our chief guest, Ambassador Uku Yatan, CS Ministry of National Treasury and Planning, CESs present, PS, State Department of Planning, the board members, Mr. Sind, the country representative leading the UN family, Dr. Andemola, country representative, UNFPA, Maendeleo ya Wanawake, chairperson, Rehab Muio, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. In case you forget everything from my speech, as I was reflecting coming here, I said there are two theories. One theory that will affect celebration of Population Day like today. One, because of COVID-19 pandemic, we are either going to reduce the population because of the many deaths. We don't know, because this disease is new, and the CARS Health is always reminding that it evolves and we are learning on the way. So we are likely to lose in population. Or because of teenage pregnancies, we are likely to have overpopulation. You may prescribe to any theory, and you take your path. I'm pleased to join you today as we celebrate the World Population Day themed Putting the Brakes on the COVID-19, how to safeguard health and rights of women and girls at the now. We are also launching the State of the World Population 2020, whose theme is Against My Will, defying the practices that harm women and girls and undermine equality. My team from the ministry, when they realized July 11th was a Saturday, in fact, led by Secretary Gender, she told me, this you cannot delegate. I was traveling and I said, I'll be here because of the theme that leans a lot on what we do in our ministry, and also an opportunity to meet the many colleagues we work around in this space of gender equality and women empowerment. Celebrating World Population Day matters as it highlights the problems associated with high population, which right now stands very close to 8 billion. Some of the problems are effect on the environment, right to health, including reproductive health, family planning, gender equality, and human rights. To tackle these challenges, a multi-agency stakeholder and partnership are really necessary. Therefore, I commend the partners and agencies who have dedicated their resources, their time, energy to tackle these challenges by coming even to share the celebrations of today. Our chief guest, the COVID-19 pandemic has drastically affected the socioeconomic landscape of women and girls and other vulnerable groups. The crisis threatened socioeconomic gains realized over the years. Since the outbreak, there has been a sharp increase in the risk of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. In Kenya, teenage pregnancy has more or less remained unchanged since 2008, with the national prevalence of 18%, which is one of the 5 teenage girls, in every one of the 5 teenage girls is either pregnant or as a baby. The situation has increased slightly, and our message is even one pregnancy is a concern to the nation because it contributes towards poverty. As it has been said here before, every time a girl gets pregnant, her years in schools are reduced, and it contributes towards the poverty of those families. The situation has worsened, and we have also seen many schoolgirls and going girls have been subjected to female genital mutilation and child marriage due to closure of the schools and restrictions of movement. Since the outbreak chief guest of this pandemic, we have registered a worrying trends through the National Gender-Based Violence Helpline 1195 that my ministry operates on 24/7 basis with the help of Healthcare Assistance Kenya. By the end of March, GMPV cases had increased by 33%, and by the end of June, they were beyond 50%. That need to worry us. Regarding the increased gender-based violence, I wish to applaud His Excellency the President for directing action on gender-based violence and rising cases of teenage pregnancies. This will strengthen the institution of the family and ensure safe spaces for women and girls. More importantly, His Excellency the President has directed the National Crime Research Center to investigate underlying causes and give an advisory that will initiate prosecution of all violators and indeed is an energizer to all of us who are working towards an equal world and an inclusive society. Our chief guest, faced with such dire situation of gender-based violence that is compounded by COVID-19 pandemic, collective effort of stakeholders through multi-sectoral initiative that would include women and girls protection, and 2, from all criminal offenses, 2, empowerment with knowledge, skills, and resources, 3, involvement and engagement in decision-making of women and girls in decision-making on matters that pertain themselves. I'm happy to inform you that the government programs using the whole of government approach, you can see the number of ministries represented here, is already taking that path. However, with that vision of the President, we must have very specific goals that need to be achieved in year 1, year 2, and year 3. It is our strong conviction that such an intervention will provide a multi-pronged response, create synergies, and unity of purpose, bring different agencies comparative advantage, and contribute to achievements that are greater than the sum of individual effort of the stakeholder. Men and women and girls and all members of the society are further encouraged to exercise their agency in reporting, voicing it out, and shining a spotlight on those among us who endanger the safety, health, rights, and dignity of women and girls. In conclusion, as chief guest, the challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic offers also a huge opportunity to get to 0 new cases of gender-based violence through enhanced multi-sectoral coordination and partnership for better quality of life of the world population, a commitment we made during the Icpd25. Finally, chief guest, I declare that all of us sitting in this room and the entire government, we have the will, we have the commitment, the inspiration and the goodwill from the national leadership, right from His Excellency the President, to make it happen. Let us do well by doing good in our population. I thank you and God bless you. Allow me now to have this humble responsibility of inviting our chief guest, who is none other than the CS in the Ministry of National Treasury, who also happens to be a colleague in the cabinet. And although in every group, you have those group dynamics, there is some people you work closely with. This is one of them. Karibu sana.
my colleague and friend, Professor Kobia, Cabinet Secretary, Public Service and Gender. And I really want to confirm a statement that we belong to one cohort, even within the setup of government. Thank you very much. And thanks for being my friend. Fellow colleagues, Chief Administrative Secretaries, my dear friend Nelson for National Treasury and Planning, Honorable Rashid from Health, Honorable Patrick Ntutu, Labor and Social Protection, where I was before. Our new Chief Administrative Secretaries, Ms. Abdallah, Ms. Mbaka. I'm not sure if I forgot some because, you know, some are so young and can easily confuse with the rest. The UN Resident Coordinator, my friend Sid, the country representative UNFPA, Dr. Demola Olajide, PS Planning, Torome, Board Chair of NCPD, maybe it's not here, the Director General, National Council of Population Development, Mohammed Sheikh, Madam Rahab, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope we're still morning hours. I am delighted to join you today to celebrate 2020 World Population Day. This is a day that has been set aside globally every 11th of July to create awareness on pertinent issues on population. For us as a country, Kenya, it is indeed a time to celebrate our achievements, reflect on the challenges, and chart the way forward for the population as a nation. At the outset, I also thank my colleague, Professor Kobia, the CSS, our partners, and the critical stakeholders who found time to be with us. That's a testimony of how important this day is to the various stakeholders, to the various policymakers. Irrespective of the number of attendees, because of the challenges that we all understand, this is a day well spent, this is a day well celebrated, and it's a testimony of our whole government approach. This year's event comes at a unique time when the world is faced with the COVID-19 pandemic that has changed the way people live and socialize, the way people interact, the way people generally do business. The theme of this year's celebration is putting brakes on COVID-19, safeguarding the health and rights of women and girls now. To safeguard the population from COVID-19 pandemic, the government has put in place various measures aimed and targeted at flattening the COVID-19 pandemic curve, as well as cushion the vulnerable population from the adverse socioeconomic impacts. To this end, we are aware, as government, mainly through Treasury, we've done all that needs to be done within the confines and the abilities of government to cushion our citizens from further adverse effects of this challenge. The COVID-19 pandemic has negatively impacted our population, both socially and economically, especially women, girls, children, and the older persons, in very many ways that you understand as much as I do. The incidence of gender-based violence and teenage pregnancies are on the rise. Why they are on the rise is a matter that we need to understand. Because the policy of stay at home, the comfort that they are supposed to be safer in their own homes, but the reports that we are getting is contrary. We need to understand why. Is there a breakdown of social order? Are we negating our responsibilities as parents, as families, to nurture and grow our children in the most responsible manner, rather than taking advantage of them? Maybe it's a matter that we need to understand better. Learning institutions have been closed for a long period of time, and the general socioeconomic activities of the country negatively affected, resulting to unprecedented loss of jobs and income. It is time unusual. And as a result, we not only require defined intervention, but also come up with strategies and mechanisms to cope and to do our things differently in a most prudent manner, so that whatever resources that are available to us are used for the service and betterment of mankind. The health sector has been strained beyond limits due to increasing demand for new and modern infrastructure and equipment. Rashid can attest to this. The level of pressure they put on Treasury to provide every other time. In a situation where the revenues are not growing, they're actually reducing drastically. It's because we want to maintain the same life and livelihood and better welfare for our population, irrespective of the challenges. There's a need for additional health workers and generally more financial requirements to cope and maintain the same level of service delivery, if not better. Because at this time we deserve better, we need more so that we can cope better. The stay-at-home appeal to contain the pandemic, though a timely measure to mitigate against the spread of the disease, has inadvertently exposed segments of the society to antisocial and undesirable menace. Contrary to the intended decisions that we stay at home so that we stay safe from this challenge, we are now getting reports that the home environment has own unique challenges that was never anticipated. Some homes are not safe, thereby creating situations where perpetrators and victims of gender-based violence spend more time together, unfortunately. Because when you live in your home, you are supposed to live as families or relatives. People fear outside, ideally, than home. Home is your refuge. Home is your safe point. But the studies have shown that that might not be the case any longer. Further, it has also been realized that a significant number of children spend time alone without parental or guardian supervision. In view of these observations, it's indeed time to reflect on these challenges with a view of initiating remedial measures to safeguard home and neighborhood environment at all times. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 pandemic poses a threat to not only the health of the population, but also the gains made in improving the quality of life over time. You're sure that over time, since independence, we've made major milestones in terms of achieving the level of development we desire. If you are not careful, all this can be swept within a very short time and can be a tough time ahead of us if you are not prepared, if you are not willing to cope, and if you are not willing to live with the situation. The pandemic poses a challenge in harnessing the democratic dividends the country has earned so far. The country's priorities and strategic investment through the medium-term three framework and the Big Four agenda programs and projects in health and well-being, education and training, economic and employment creation, housing, the governance sectors with the aim of harnessing the potential of young people and accelerating socio-economic development that ultimately leads to a better quality of life for the citizenry may be at risk unless carefully managed. Further, it's important to note that the advent of COVID-19 threatens to reverse the gains that have been made to harness the youth potential. Through careful nurturing, giving them good education, good standards, good practice, this can actually be reversed within a very short time. Some harmful practices also threaten to impair the progress being made to enhance the role of women and girls in actualizing and benefiting from the anticipated democratic dividend. I do not wish to really belabor this point because life is changing very fast at the economic space, at the social space. Time is moving, we are growing, our bodies are responding differently. Unless we manage and adapt accordingly, all the gains that we made over time can just go to waste. And as a responsible government, we have done everything within our means to put these checks in place by not only providing adequate requisite resources, but staying on course on the development trajectory that we've taken. The government has noted the multiplicity of challenges and impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on different cohorts of population. It's in realization of this that the government came up with the broad economic interventions, including fiscal monetary measures, as well as the social support to mitigate against the adverse effects of the pandemic by further cushioning vulnerable segments of society. I think you have seen for yourself, for the last 3 months, the government had to forego 176 billion in form of revenue so that we continue cushioning the vulnerable segment of the population. We have to forego, reduce the income tax from 30% to 25%. We have to reduce VAT from 16% to 14%. We have to allocate adequate resources to support the urban poor, people who on a daily basis earn wages as a result of working in the industries. Now, since there are these challenges, a number of these industries have been closed, and therefore they are exposed to the vagaries of the socioeconomic poverty and challenges. So what do? We have to reduce drastically on some of those taxes that's going to give benefits to the industry so that they remain open, and also further cushioning those of us who live within the informal settlements and are now without formal employment. Additionally, you're also aware that the government came up with a stimulus package, the tune of about 57 billion that will be implemented within a number of sectors, in the health sector, in the education sector, in the water sector, and a lot of it is to give support and opportunities for our people to work. The Kazi Mutani program, so that the youths will be, there will be continuous empowerment and employment creation for our youth, so that they do not remain idle, but their energies can be tapped into social innovations and support. The cash transfer program on population, you are aware the Hygiene program, which we dubbed it Kazi Mutani, targeting the youth employment and empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, as we mark this day, we need to recall in November 2019, during the Nairobi Summit of Icpd25, and I think Sid and UNFP director has clearly indicated here, it was a monumental success for us as a continent, because that was the second after Cairo, and attended by more than 170 nationalities from all over the globe. And it managed to put Kenya into the perspective that we are ready, we are committed, we are on course in taking leadership on population matters on the globe. This is very positive for us. You are aware around that time, our President, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, led other heads of states in making firm commitments to matters of population and improving conditions of living, especially for the vulnerable groups in our society. At this summit, Kenya made 17 commitments, including eliminating FGM by 2022, and we are talking of less than 2 years to come. We made this commitment to the world, and ending teenage pregnancies by 2030. They are all doable. And I want to reiterate the position taken, I'm not sure if it's UNFP or SEED, that if we are able to change our way of doing business the last few months, that we are no longer, it's no longer a strange practice, that we can say hi to each other without necessarily shaking hands, that we can put on this mask, however uncomfortable they may be. If we're able to cope and manage this, why not that? It is a commitment that we have taken. And from where we sit in Treasury, Madam Kobe, I want to assure you that we'll be working with you. We may not get resources to do other things, but I want to commit here that we'll do anything within our means to provide you requisite resources to implement this commitment. They are important. We can only achieve this if we put the family at the core of our nation. When we are well, when we are happy, when we are working, sometimes we don't see the value of family. But it will dawn on you when you are sick, when you are alone, when you are distressed, when everyone has deserted you. The only solace and fortitude you have is a family. That's why we need to continue investing in them. That's why we need to continue nurturing our families so that we'll have a better nation. The population policy for national development recognizes the family as a basic and indivisible unit of the society, which therefore calls on the parents to take up the role of nurturing and guiding the children seriously. The parents, we all know, most of us are, that the parents are the first teachers of our children. A duty that whatsoever cannot be delegated to anyone. You can delegate your office, you can delegate anything, but you cannot delegate the role and responsibilities of your children. Whatever ages they are, whether they are young and old, they remain your children, and we need to nurture them. We cannot trust or delegate to anyone. A job that we must take seriously moving forward. Experience has shown that parental neglect is heavily contributing to delinquent behavior among children. What you see out there is a reflection of the parents, most of the time. The children you see on the streets, the children engaging in other, malpractices, antisocial behavior, most likely there's a bearing on their upbringing. And that's why we are called upon to be responsible parents, to be caring parents, to be parents who have time for their children. I know the demand of our duties, sometimes it weighs heavily on the growth of your children, but we need to take time and balance. I appeal to all parents to monitor their children, especially this time, that they will be at home for a long time. Actually, you see, a number of times the parents are so desperate for the schools to be open, not because they want the children to learn, but because they are afraid or maybe they are scared of the additional responsibilities, which will not be the case. Parents should therefore make more efforts at this time. Maybe it's also a bonding process. It's a learning process. Understand the individual characteristic of your child. And there are many, within the family, they are not the same. One is quiet, one is aggressive, one plays a lot, one is destructive. It's important you understand who they are, bond with them, and look for prescriptive solution on managing their growth pattern. As the future of our nation, children need to be appropriately nurtured so as to realize their full potential for both health and prosperity of our country. Our country's health and the population is a reflection of our individual being, the unit, the family unit from every corner. So if we all take our responsibility seriously, we'll have a healthy nation, we'll have a responsible nation, we'll have a prosperous nation, because we are all busy, committed, and focused on the welfare of the bigger nation. We need to put the brakes on young teenage girls from becoming pregnant. And it's not the time to be shy about talking about, those obvious things. It's not time to murmur them in the bedrooms. It's not time to look the other side. It is time to handle head on. and say as it is. Because when things does not go the right way, we have no excuse, totally no excuse. Your child is a reflection of yourself. If they now engage in antisocial behavior, if their dreams and their desires for growth are destroyed, you cannot blame them. We can only blame yourselves. Boys and girls should not fall through the cracks as they socialize, because sometimes there are many things happening. At the time we are growing up and the time our children are growing up are totally different. The threats are very different. We're in the era of technology. They get access to all sorts of information, good and bad information. And sometimes the bad ones are quite addictive, the internet. So we have to look for ways of making sure that our children are protected against all this. Let them not fall through the crack. Let them not go and underperform or perform below expectation of yourselves and the nation. Make sure that the children do not engage in drugs and substance abuse at this time. If you pretend that this is not there, then you must be living in a different continent. This is real. They're in your homes. Or not in your homes, they're in your neighborhood. You don't have to go far to look for those drugs. They are all over. The number of people pushing them are people who you cannot imagine they can engage in such activity. So we have now extra duty. We are not like the parents of yesteryears. We are parents of today with all daggers drawn against our children, destroying them. The internet, drugs, antisocial behavior, insecurity. So we have to work hard and protect our children at all times. The onus of safeguards are squarely placed on each one of us as individuals and families. As I finish, this is just a call to you that let's remain steadfast in our vigilance to continue to adhere to the Ministry of Health protocol, because in the current circumstance, we are all aware that the events of the last few days, if you are not alive to what Rashid and CS Kagwe tells us every day, maybe it's high time that you go back to the drawing board. Now it's coming closer. It's coming closer. The numbers are increasing. And we will never know whether we have enough facilities, we have enough situation to cope. So we must be prepared as individuals, as families, must protect even our workmates. You must engage in the appropriate social practices. If you thought that, using these, you used to be very comfortable about using the face mask. But now, I think the events of the last few days is telling me particularly now, it's not time to joke around. It's time to be serious. It's time to be serious and stay on target. We need to control the spread of this problem. And really, as I finish, I want to thank our partners. They have worked with us along this journey. That does not mean that, everything becomes COVID. There are many things. Life does not stop. Our normal life requirement of supporting the maternal health, the way SEED and the group have done in the past, remains as priority. There are also a number of mothers, children at birth. We lose them because no time to relax on those areas because we have a new enemy. The combination of all these enemies must be fought at all fronts, but they must be fought differently, and they must be fought at the same time. Undoubtedly, I am confident that as Kenyans, we remain resilient, and we have been, even the adversity of circumstances. I'm also confident that we'll bounce back, not only socially, but even as an economy. Our economy is already showing signs that we can withstand this challenge. Our farmers are doing their best to produce enough food for all of us. our businessmen, the SMEs, have already shown signs that yes, despite the challenge, that they can soldier on. Thank you very much, and may God bless all of you. I think now I want to invite my colleagues here, Professor Kobia and Sid. We now, at the time of now launching the State of Kenya's Population 2020, and also a UN report. Are we ready? You want us to come that way? You sure? Okay. Huh?
10, 9.
Okay. So how should it? Yeah. Then, Rashid, okay. Huh? Oh, you want that background?
Okay, all right.
Oh, so you.
I think they want. Yeah.
Prof. So, are you counting, or do you want me to do it? So, we are ready to go. Where are our young casters? You need to be closer to us.
Come here.
This is your generation. So now we are ready, and we are ready to launch these two important reports. I say 1, 2, 3, go. Good. A second launch. Good. So, thank you very much. Okay? Since you are not
So thank you, sir. These are the two documents we launched. This is for the world population, state of the world population, and the state of the Kenyan population. So this is just looking at issues of harmful practices, and this is just also looking at issues of harmful. So the theme, this is zero harmful practices. That's where we focus on those two documents. So this also captures some part of our demographic.
10, 9, 8.
And our pyramid. So thank you, Professor, and thank you, sir. I think we are on live, and the live coverage is coming to an end. But we just want to thank you, sir. We want to thank Professor, Madam Kopia. Professor, thank you for your time. We want to thank our CAS, our other CASs, our UN rep, our partners, and we want to thank KRA. They have given us this good facility, and we want to thank our board for the big support we got. We just want to say thank you very much, and we want to say have a blessed day. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Umoja wetu na tulinde uhuru na amani bila
2020 celebration. In November 2019, Kenya hosted the Icpd25 Summit in Nairobi, which was officially flagged off by His Excellency, President Uhuru Kenyatta.
We are here to celebrate progress made in the last 25 years and to make new commitments to complete the unfinished agenda.
The World Population Day 2020 is a day for us to reflect and evaluate our progress.
The greatest asset of any nation is people, the population. And how we manage the population, how we nurture the population, how we make the population live beyond the current times, the future, is government has a role.
The National Council for Population and Development, NCPD, is a state corporation that is mandated to implement the coordination of population issues and population matters. This year we are commemorating or celebrating the World Population Day, which we are going to mark on the 11th of July 2020. This day will mark here in Nairobi. With this day we are going to mark in a special way because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
This is a very, very important day because the world community come together, or the world community celebrates this day so as to focus on issues that are affecting the population.
This year, 2020, we are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, and the theme of the World Population Day that speaks to putting the brakes of COVID while still protecting the rights and the health of women and girls is very instructive. The impact of the pandemic on women and girls has actually been very severe.
You find that the hand-to-mouth, what we do in the Kikomba, in Kariako, in the Mama Mboga, the small-scale and medium-scale businesses were affected.
The first case of COVID-19 was reported in Kenya mid-March 2020, and since then life has never been the same. One of the things we have noted with concern is a sudden spike or surge in gender-based violence cases that have been reported in Kenya.
As a council, the epidemic has come when we are starting to implement the Icpd25 commitment, which, when you look at those 17 commitments, are aimed at improving the quality of life of the population. And we cannot improve the quality of the population when now the epidemic is with us. It's affecting the vulnerable population, more so women and girls, and in the urban areas, especially the informal settlements.
We have experienced the challenge of the pregnancies, which I spoke about last week. And we are going to encourage to experience it because we have another 6 months to January, when we hope that something will have worked out around COVID.
We do know that women and girls are at the forefront of providing care, particularly in developing countries and also in the healthcare delivery system. And so the burden of responding to the COVID-19 pandemic has been, unfortunately, heavier on women and girls. And that's why the theme for this year brings us all together as stakeholders to look at our response, to look at our post-COVID response with a gender lens, to ensuring that as we go forward, we pay particular attention to the health, to the rights, to the protection, and of course to the optimal development of women and girls.
Kenyans are very adaptive. If we focus ourselves and draw our energy and resources towards fighting a particular virus, we'll manage. And you can see now Kenyans are well informed about COVID-19. The level of awareness is very high. People are coping. In contrast to other countries, our coping has been fairly okay. So if we now also target this virus, the fight against this virus, with the same zeal, then we are definitely going to, control it.
As a nation, we are a very resilient nation, and as you have seen during this pandemic, we have really come together and really overcome these challenges. Moving forward, I just want to urge and advise Kenyans that we need to really continue with the spirit of togetherness, the spirit of really protecting ourselves, protecting our loved ones, and follow the MOH and the World Health Organization guidelines on the prevention of the COVID-19. We need to wash our hands. We need to keep social distancing, and we need to sanitize whenever it is necessary. And I just wish you all the best during this celebration. Thank you very much.
Well, we're here at the KRA Auditorium where we've just concluded the launch of the World Population Day. And this year's theme was putting the brakes on COVID-19 and how to safeguard the health and rights of women and girls, especially during this particular pandemic. And one of the things that has been very prevalent during this time is the fact that there has been an increase in teenage pregnancies during this time. And there has also been an increase in cases of gender-based violence during this particular pandemic. And it is up to each and every one of us. It's a social responsibility to ensure that these girls actually get access to reproductive health care, as well as also their parents ensure also that their parents, it's an effort, it's a social and economical effort to ensure also that these girls can be able to push through this particular time. I'm joined by Ademola Olajide, who is the UNFPA county representative. Welcome, sir. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. And
yes,
you?
very well. So why this particular theme?
Well, we're celebrating World Population Day, which is talking about the people.
Yes.
Every segment of the people, their well-being, their welfare. This World Population Day is drawing our attention to the fact that women and girls, normally in most societies, are the backbone.
Yes.
They're already on a back foot. And COVID-19 has only served to re-emphasize and reinforce some of those vulnerabilities and inequalities that used to be there.
Yeah.
So we are calling attention of all stakeholders, government, families, societies, partners, every single one of us, that as we are responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, we must take particular attention and deliberate effort to safeguard the health and the rights of women and girls at this time.
Okay. And we've seen instances where now with schools being closed, these girls are forced to stay home with their parents. The homes are supposed to be the comfort zone, you know. You're supposed to be the safety of your environment. But these are the same places where these girls are being vulnerable. And some of these women as well, these are the same areas where these acts are being done against them. What's your take on that particular issue?
That is a huge challenge. But within that challenge, it then presents us a unique opportunity to refashion our development objective. We should now aim at making sure that the home is a safe space for women and girls. We must put in place systems within the community, within the societies that ensures that women and girls and boys can be safe in their homes. Having safe spaces in safe centers, in rescue centers, though desirable, is not a sustainable model. And so as we reopen the economy, as we try to refocus our development objectives and trajectory, we should have the family at the centerpiece and the community ensuring that the homes and the larger community is the ultimate safe space. Yeah. That is more sustainable, that is more efficient, and that would help us go a long way.
Wow. Okay. And one of the key things that came out quite strong was girls from low income households, which is like 26% of them are more prevalent, or rather more vulnerable actually to getting pregnant than girls from well-off families. And during this particular time, also there's a notion. I met one of the activists who's assisting girls from low-income households, and there's a notion that in the slum areas, when you're 17, 18, and you don't have a child, you're not seen as mature or as an adult. You know, it's deemed as also a term of prestige. How can we as a country, how can we as a society change this mentality among these girls?
Several things. One, poverty itself is a predisposing factor. And so it means that as we are structuring the economy, as we are giving incentives, as you heard the CS Treasury talk about, we must deliberately target those of the lower socioeconomic cadre. The fact that we've given incentives, if we do not directly target, it may not necessarily reach them. So there must be deliberate effort to address issues of vulnerabilities within household. Particularly for the girls, as simple as providing sanitary towels reduces a girl's vulnerability at that age. Once she can manage her monthly periods with dignity, then we must begin to work around community values. Build the right values within young children, build young values within young adults and in the society at large, so that the peer pressure, which will never go away, will be a positive peer pressure. And then we must have the difficult conversations, as we had the CS say. Teenage pregnancy is a reflection of our larger society. It's the result of a collective failure of all of us as a whole. We must come up with the interventions that are driven by the evidence, that are driven by the realities where we find ourselves, not by sentiments, not by emotions, but by evidence to get the desired objectives. Teenage pregnancy should have no place in our society.
Okay. And do you think the 2022 and the 2030 goals are attainable?
Very attainable. And like I said during my presentation, we've stopped shaking hands. We wear this mask as uncomfortable as it is. When we can get politicians to stop shaking hands in 2 months, we can get people to stop cutting a woman's genitals for no reason in 2 years. It's the determination and the leadership has been provided by the president and the cabinet secretaries. We all should just line up behind it and make it happen.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. With the government ensuring that by 2022 FGM, to put an end to FGM practices, and by 2030 to try and put an end to teen pregnancies, parents and various stakeholders are being urged at this particular moment to ensure that they sit on the table, they give a listening ear to the youth out there. Back to you.
Thank you, Janet.
I help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain.
If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more. Like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted. And always remember to taste the simple joys. Coca-Cola. Taste the simple joys.